Knocking hit the cabin door like it wanted blood before the old rancher even touched his plate. The sound came again, harder this time, sharp enough to shake dust from the wooden frame. He froze with a fork halfway to his mouth. No one came here anymore, not in years, not since the land went quiet and the graves filled up behind the hill. Another knock. Then a voice, thin and broken, 3 words cut through the wood, "Please open up." He stood slowly, knees aching, and reached for the rifle resting near the table but stopped. The knocking turned into a rhythm now, desperate, uneven, like small fists losing strength. He walked to the door, each step heavy, and pulled it open without asking why. He saw them first as shapes against the dark. 3 children standing too still for their age. The oldest girl held the other 2 close, like she could keep them from disappearing. The boy's shirt was torn at the shoulder. The smallest girl held something tight in her hand, a piece of metal catching faint light. The rancher didn't speak at first. The wind pressed behind them, cold and dry. The oldest girl finally broke the silence. "Please," she said. Her voice didn't shake but it sounded worn out. "We ain't thieves," the boy added quickly. "We just need food." The rancher studied them, eyes narrowing. "Where from?" he asked. The girl hesitated. "Nowhere good." That wasn't an answer. "Where are your parents?" he asked next. The smallest girl answered instead, "Dead," like it was a word she had said too many times already. The rancher's grip tightened on the doorframe. The metal in the child's hand glinted again. He noticed it then, a silver button, old and scratched. Something in his chest shifted but he didn't show it. "Come in," he said finally, like the words weighed more than he wanted. Weeks of silence lived inside the cabin as the door shut behind them. The fire was low, but it held enough heat to make the children step closer without speaking. The rancher set bread on the table, then water, then nothing else. He didn't ask them to sit again. They did anyway. The oldest girl kept watching him, like she expected him to change his mind. The boy ate too fast, coughing between bites. The smallest girl never let go of the silver button. The rancher noticed that more than anything. "Where did you get that?" he asked again, quieter now. The girl didn't answer right away. "I always had it," she said finally. The rancher nodded once but didn't believe her. The fire cracked. Shadows moved across the walls like they were listening. He turned away and opened a drawer near the stove. Inside was an old photograph wrapped in cloth. He pulled it out slowly, like it might break his hands. The image showed a young woman standing in front of a barn, smiling without knowing she shouldn't have been. The rancher's thumb covered part of her face. Same button missing from her coat, same shape as the one in the child's hand. His breath stopped. The oldest girl saw his face change. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer. The boy leaned forward. "You know her?" The rancher finally spoke, voice low and rough. "She was mine." Silence dropped hard. The smallest girl stepped closer to the table and placed the button down carefully like it was something sacred. The rancher stared at it, then at her, then at the fire. "Who gave you this?" he asked again, but it came out like a warning. The oldest girl shook her head. "No one gave it. It was already with her when she was taken." "Taken," the rancher repeated. The word didn't fit in the room. Outside, wind pressed against the walls like something circling. The boy whispered that they had escaped from a place where children disappeared if they asked too many questions. The rancher didn't move. The girl continued, voice steady but hollow. "There were papers, names, locked rooms, and a man who never smiled." "Sheriff Danner," she said. The name hit the room like a hammer. The rancher's hand tightened on the table until wood creaked under pressure. He knew that name. He had buried it once in his life and now it was standing in his house again. The fire snapped louder, almost like it agreed. The rancher looked at the children for a long time. Then he spoke, slow and final. "You're not leaving this place alone." He reached for the silver button again and closed his fist around it like it could burn away the past. The oldest girl watched him without blinking and asked softly what happens now, and the rancher finally answered that they would wait for morning and then decide who was still alive in this land of silence. The fire had settled into a low, tired crackle when the rancher finally moved again. He didn't look at the children at first. His eyes stayed on the silver button resting on the table like it had already started pulling the room apart. The smallest girl had placed it there gently, like she knew it meant more than food or shelter. The rancher leaned forward slowly, as if the air had turned heavy. "Where did this come from?" he asked again, voice lower now, sharper at the edges. The smallest girl didn't answer. The boy glanced at the oldest girl. She didn't look at either of them. "I already told you," the girl said. "It was with her things." "With whose things?" the rancher asked. The boy answered too quickly. "The woman who watched us." The rancher froze. "What woman?" The oldest girl finally looked up. Her eyes were steady but tired, like she had learned not to blink too much in life. "She worked there. Before she died." The word "died" landed heavier than anything else in the room. The rancher sat back slowly. "Tell me everything," he said. The boy wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "It was an orphan place," he said. "But not like they said it was." "Say it straight," the rancher snapped. The boy flinched. "People went in. Not all came out." Silence hit again, thicker now. The oldest girl continued. "There were rooms. Locked rooms. And bells that rang at night." "What kind of bells?" the rancher asked. "Like church bells," she said. "But wrong." The fire popped loudly, making the smallest girl jump. She tightened her grip on the button. The rancher's eyes stayed locked on it. "You said sheriff," he muttered. The boy nodded. "Sheriff Danner." The name didn't surprise him anymore. It just confirmed something already rotten in his memory. "What did he do there?" the rancher asked. The oldest girl hesitated. Then she spoke flat. "He came and went like he owned it." The boy leaned forward. He smiled at the staff. "Never at us." "And the woman?" the rancher pressed. "The one you said died." The oldest girl swallowed once. "She tried to get us out." "Why didn't she?" he asked. "Because she learned too late," she said. "They were already watching her." The rancher stood abruptly. The chair scraped hard against wood. He walked to the window and looked out into black fields. Nothing moved out there, but it still felt like something was waiting. "What did she tell you before she died?" he asked without turning back. The boy spoke quietly. "She said there was a man who once lost a daughter." The rancher didn't move. "She said," the boy continued, "if anyone survives, find the cabin with the broken fence and the man with bad hands." The rancher's fingers twitched at his sides. The oldest girl added, "She gave us the button. Said it belonged to someone who should have never been forgotten." The rancher turned slowly. "That button was on my daughter's coat," he said. Nobody spoke. The fire sounded louder now, like it was filling the silence. The smallest girl finally spoke for the first time since sitting down. "She said you would understand it." The rancher looked at her. "What else did she say?" The girl hesitated. Then she whispered, "She said we didn't run by accident." The boy nodded quickly. "We were sent." The rancher stepped closer. "By who?" The oldest girl shook her head. "We don't know her name. She was already dying when she told us." The rancher's jaw tightened. "And she trusted children with this." "She said adults always get killed before the truth," the boy replied. That hit something deeper in him. He didn't respond right away. Outside, wind pushed hard against the cabin walls. A loose board creaked somewhere near the roof. The sound made the boy flinch again. The rancher walked back to the table and picked up the button. It felt colder than metal should have been. "You took papers too," he said. The oldest girl nodded once. "Letters." Records. Names. Where are they? He asked. The boy pulled something from inside his coat. A tight oil-wrapped bundle, dark and worn. The rancher stared at it. You carried that the whole way, he said. The boy nodded. Didn't trust anyone else with it. The rancher didn't take it yet. Instead, he looked at all three of them. Really looked. Dirty faces. Hungry eyes. Fear held too deep for their age. You understand what this means, he said slowly. If that sheriff is involved, he won't stop looking. The oldest girl answered without hesitation. He already is. A long silence followed. Then the rancher finally reached out and took the bundle. As his fingers closed around it, something distant outside snapped like a branch breaking. All four of them went still at the same time. The boy whispered, "That's them." The rancher moved to the rifle by the wall. No one speaks, he said. The cabin felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had leaned in closer. The fire kept burning, but nobody was watching it anymore. The rancher didn't sleep that night. He sat near the window with the rifle across his lap while the children stayed close to the fire, not speaking unless they had to. Every sound outside felt closer than it should have been. The wind dragged through the broken fence like something trying to remember how to breathe. At some point, the oldest girl stood up without asking. We need to finish what she started, she said. The rancher didn't look at her. You don't know what you're asking. I do, she answered. The boy shifted nervously. She said there's something buried in the ash house. The rancher's hand tightened on the rifle. You've been talking to ghosts too much. The smallest girl held the silver button tighter. She said you'd say that. That made him look at them. She told you a lot of things, he said. The oldest girl stepped closer. She told us where to run. She told us who would still be alive when we got here. And she told you to bring me into it, he replied. The boy shook his head fast. No. She said you were already inside it. That silence hit different. He didn't answer right away. Outside, something moved near the barn. A slow scrape. Wood against wood. The rancher stood instantly and moved to the door, opening it just enough to look out. Nothing. But the night didn't feel empty anymore. Stay inside, he said. But the oldest girl was already grabbing her coat. We're going, she said. He turned sharply. You don't even know where. She pointed toward the tree line. The ash house is past the old burn ground. The rancher stopped. That name meant something. He just hadn't said it out loud in years. The boy added, she said it used to be a place they called clean work. The rancher shut the door harder than needed. That place is dead. The oldest girl didn't back down. Then why are you scared of it? He didn't answer that either. They went anyway. The walk felt longer than it should have. The ground shifted from packed dirt to broken black soil where nothing grew right. The wind carried a faint burnt smell even though there hadn't been fire there in years. The rancher led without talking. The children followed closely, like they knew he might change his mind at any step. After a while, the boy spoke low. She said you used to work here. The rancher didn't look back. I didn't work here. The boy hesitated. She said you did before everything went bad. That made him stop for half a second. Then he kept walking. They reached the structure without warning. Half-collapsed wood. Roof caved in. Black stains on the walls that never washed out. The ash house didn't look like a building anymore. It looked like something that had been punished and left alive. The smallest girl whispered, "It's still here." The rancher stepped forward first. "Stay back." The oldest girl shook her head. She said the ground under the north corner. The rancher didn't want to go in. But he did. Inside, the air felt wrong. Not just old, but trapped. Every step made dust rise like it didn't want to leave. He moved toward the corner she pointed at. The wood there looked newer than the rest, like it had been replaced quietly. The boy crouched. "Dig there." The rancher stared at him. "You're sure?" The boy nodded. She said, "Don't wait." The rancher used his hands first, then a broken piece of wood. Dirt came up too easy. Too soft. Like it had been disturbed before and covered again. Then wood. He stopped. "What is it?" the oldest girl asked. He didn't answer. He pulled harder. A box. Long and sealed, wrapped in cloth that had gone dark with time. The rancher sat back for a second, breathing heavier than before. "Don't open it yet," he said. But the boy already stepped closer. "Why not?" "Because I don't know what's inside," the rancher said. The oldest girl crouched beside him. "She said you would." That line again. Always that line. He opened it. Inside were papers. Old records. Names written and rewritten. Some crossed out so hard the ink tore through. There were photographs too, but none of them looked staged. They looked taken in secret. Children standing in lines. Doors behind them with locks that didn't match anything legal. The rancher flipped through faster now. The boy leaned in. "What is it?" The rancher stopped on one page. A name. His daughter's name. The room went silent in a way that felt physical. The oldest girl saw his face change. "What is that?" He couldn't speak at first. Then finally, she was here. The boy blinked. "Who?" "My daughter," the rancher said. The smallest girl stepped back. "You said she was gone." "I said I thought she was gone," he corrected. The wind outside hit the broken wall hard, shaking loose dust from the beams. The rancher stood slowly. "This place isn't just a shelter," he said. "It's a ledger." The oldest girl looked at the papers again. "It's proof." "Yes," he said. "And proof always gets people killed." The boy whispered, "Then they'll come for this." The rancher nodded once. "They already are." Far outside, a distant sound carried through the trees. Not wind this time. Hooves. The rancher closed the box fast. "Move." The oldest girl grabbed the papers. "Where?" He looked toward the broken exit. "Back before they decide we stay here forever." They ran. And behind them, the ash house stayed standing just long enough to feel like it had been waiting for this moment all along. They didn't stop running until the ash house was no longer behind them, only a dark shape swallowed by trees in distance. The rancher moved first, pushing through brush with the oil-wrapped bundle tight in his grip. The children followed close, breath loud, steps uneven, like the ground itself was trying to trip them. No one spoke until they reached the bend near the dry creek bed. The boy bent over, hands on knees. "They saw us." The rancher didn't slow down. "They always see what they want." The oldest girl looked back once. "We can't go back there." "We're not going back," the rancher said. The smallest girl stayed quiet, still holding the silver button like it was the only thing keeping her steady. They reached the cabin long after dark settled again. The wind had picked up, scraping the broken fence like bones against wood. Inside, the fire was still alive, low and struggling. The rancher shut the door hard and finally let himself breathe. "Sit," he said. No one moved at first. Then they did, slowly, like their bodies were unsure if safety was real. The rancher placed the oil-wrapped bundle on the table. It looked heavier now than before. The boy stared at it. "That's it." The rancher nodded once. "And it's worse than I thought." The oldest girl leaned forward. "Open it." He didn't respond immediately. His hand hovered over the cloth like it might bite. "You sure you want to see what this costs?" he asked. The girl didn't flinch. "We already paid." That stopped him. He unwrapped it slowly. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Some folded neatly, others crumpled like they had been read too many times. Ink had faded in places, but the meaning was still sharp. The rancher picked up the first one. His voice turned low as he read. Payment received. Child intake confirmed. Transfer approved. The boy frowned. What does that mean? The rancher didn't answer. He grabbed another letter. Records altered. Names reassigned. No trace required. The oldest girl's expression hardened. They erased them. The rancher nodded slightly. Worse. They sold them. Silence filled the room again, but it wasn't empty anymore. It felt crowded. He opened another letter. His hand paused halfway through reading. The smallest girl noticed. What is it? He didn't want to say it, but he did anyway. My daughter's name, he said. The room shifted. The boy stood. She was there? The rancher didn't look up. She was taken there. The oldest girl leaned in closer, scanning the papers herself now. She escaped? The rancher's jaw tightened. I don't know. The fire cracked sharply, as if reacting. He read another line aloud. Subject transferred under sheriff authorization. Danner approval required. The boy stepped back. That sheriff again. The rancher finally looked at him. He's not just a sheriff. The oldest girl's voice lowered. Then what is he? The rancher hesitated. He's family to the system that built this. No one spoke for a moment. Then the smallest girl quietly asked, Was your daughter alive when she wrote this? The rancher froze. He slowly picked up a folded sheet that looked different from the rest. It wasn't official. No stamps. No signatures of power. Just handwriting. His daughter's handwriting. The room went completely still as he unfolded it. He didn't read it at first. He just stared. The boy whispered, What does it say? The rancher swallowed hard. Then he read. If anyone finds this, don't trust the names above the doors. They change them. They break them. I learned too late. I saw what they do with the quiet ones. If you're reading this, it means I failed or you were brave enough to follow the truth. The rancher stopped for a second. His voice broke slightly, but he kept going. Tell my father I'm sorry I didn't come home. Tell him I tried. The room felt smaller again. The oldest girl looked away. She was alive. The rancher nodded slowly. For a while. The boy's voice cracked. And then. The rancher didn't answer immediately. He placed the letter down carefully like it was fragile bone. And then she stopped writing, he said. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was heavy, like something had settled in the room and refused to leave. Outside, a distant sound cut through the wind. Hooves. Slow. Controlled. The rancher stood instantly, his hand moving to the rifle. The oldest girl grabbed the letters. We can't lose these. We might already have, he said. The boy moved closer to the window. How many? The rancher looked through the glass into the dark. Enough. The smallest girl pressed the silver button into her palm so hard it left an imprint. Are they coming for us? She asked. The rancher didn't turn around. They're coming for what we know, he said. A pause. Then he added, quieter. And they don't leave witnesses. The hooves stopped somewhere near the tree line. No one moved. The rancher whispered, Stay away from the windows. The oldest girl nodded. The boy held his breath. The fire behind them flickered like it was listening too. And outside, the night waited without making a sound. The hooves had stopped outside the tree line, but the silence that followed felt worse than movement. Inside the cabin, nobody spoke. The rancher stayed near the window with the rifle lowered but ready, eyes fixed on the dark like it might blink first. The children stayed close to the table, letters still spread out like evidence that refused to disappear. The boy whispered, "They're still out there." The rancher didn't answer. He already knew. The oldest girl leaned closer to the papers. "They didn't just take us. They track everything." The rancher finally spoke, low and rough. "They always have." A soft knock came from outside. Not loud. Controlled. Intentional. The smallest girl stiffened instantly. The silver button slipped slightly in her hand. The boy stepped back. "Don't open it." The rancher didn't move yet. He listened. The knock came again. Then a voice. Calm. Almost polite. "Evening." The rancher's jaw tightened. The oldest girl mouthed silently. "Sheriff." The rancher raised one finger. "Stay quiet." Another knock. "I know you're in there," the voice continued. "Children too." The rancher finally spoke toward the door. "What do you want?" A pause. Then Sheriff Danner answered. "Just talk." The rancher didn't laugh. "You don't come here for talk." A soft chuckle outside. "Still sharp." "Good." The children looked at each other. The boy whispered, "He knows everything." The rancher didn't take his eyes off the door. "Say it or leave." Another pause. Then the sheriff's voice changed slightly. Less polite. "You're holding things that don't belong to you." The rancher replied, "They belong to the dead." "That's not how law works," the sheriff said. The rancher's grip tightened. "Law didn't work here for a long time." Silence stretched. Then the sheriff spoke again. "You've been reading letters." The oldest girl froze. The rancher didn't deny it. The sheriff continued, slower now. "Those children don't understand what they're carrying." The rancher answered, "They understand more than you think." A faint shift outside. Like someone stepping closer to the door. "You always were stubborn," the sheriff said. The rancher's voice dropped. "And you always were a liar." The air outside felt heavier. The sheriff didn't respond for a moment. Then, softly, "Open the door." The rancher didn't move. The boy whispered, "Don't." The oldest girl added, "He's not alone." The rancher raised his hand slightly. "Quiet." Then he spoke again through the door. "You want these papers?" "Yes." "You want the children?" A pause. "Yes," the sheriff admitted. The rancher exhaled slowly. "Then you're already late." The silence outside changed. Less calm now. The sheriff's tone hardened. "You think you can hide them?" The rancher replied, "No. I think I can decide what they become." A sharp sound outside. A boot shifting in dirt. The sheriff spoke again, colder. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." The rancher finally stepped closer to the door. "I understand enough." Behind him, the oldest girl whispered, "Don't open it." The rancher didn't look back. "I won't." The sheriff's voice dropped lower. "Last chance." The rancher answered immediately. "No." A long silence followed. Then the sheriff said something quieter, almost personal. "You buried your daughter wrong." The rancher stopped. The room behind him went still. The boy looked confused. What did he say? The rancher's hand tightened on the rifle. The sheriff continued. "She didn't just disappear. She was processed. Like the rest." The oldest girl stepped forward. "Don't listen to him." But the rancher didn't move. The sheriff added, "You want truth? Open the door." The rancher spoke slowly now. "If I open this door, one of us doesn't walk away." A faint pause. Then the sheriff answered honestly. Yes. The children went silent. The rancher turned slightly toward them for the first time since the knock started. The boy whispered, "We're not going out there." The oldest girl added, "We fight from inside." The smallest girl held the silver button tighter. The rancher looked at them for a long moment. Then he made his decision. He stepped away from the door. Not toward it. Away from it. The sheriff outside didn't speak. Then, suddenly, a harder knock. No more patience. Open it now. The rancher raised the rifle slowly. The boy whispered, "What are you doing?" The rancher didn't answer. The sheriff spoke again, voice rising. "You can't protect them." The rancher finally replied, steady and cold. "I'm not protecting them." A pause. Then he added, "I'm choosing who comes through that door." Outside, something shifted. More than one person now. The sheriff wasn't alone. The rancher looked at the children one last time. "Stay behind me," he said. The oldest girl nodded. The boy swallowed hard. The smallest girl didn't move. The knock came again, louder this time. And the rancher reached for the latch. The boy whispered, "He knows everything." The rancher didn't take his eyes off the door. "Say it or leave." Another pause. Then the sheriff's voice changed slightly. Less polite. "You're holding things that don't belong to you." The rancher replied, "They belong to the dead." "That's not how law works," the sheriff said. The rancher's grip tightened. "Law didn't work here for a long time." Silence stretched. Then the sheriff spoke again. "You've been reading letters." The oldest girl froze. The rancher didn't deny it. The sheriff continued, slower now. "Those children don't understand what they're carrying." The rancher answered, "They understand more than you think." A faint shift outside. Like someone stepping closer to the door. "You always were stubborn," the sheriff said. The rancher's voice dropped. "And you always were a liar." The air outside felt heavier. The sheriff didn't respond for a moment. Then, softly, "Open the door." The rancher didn't move. The boy whispered, "Don't." The oldest girl added, "He's not alone." The rancher raised his hand slightly. "Quiet." Then he spoke again through the door. "You want these papers?" "Yes." "You want the children?" A pause. "Yes," the sheriff admitted. The rancher exhaled slowly. "Then you're already late." The silence outside changed. Less calm now. The sheriff's tone hardened. "You think you can hide them?" The rancher replied, "No. I think I can decide what they become." A sharp sound outside. A boot shifting in dirt. The sheriff spoke again, colder. "You don't understand what you're interfering with." The rancher finally stepped closer to the door. "I understand enough." Behind him, the oldest girl whispered, "Don't open it." The rancher didn't look back. "I won't." The sheriff's voice dropped lower. "Last chance." The rancher answered immediately. "No." A long silence followed. Then the sheriff said something quieter, almost personal. "You buried your daughter wrong." The rancher stopped. The room behind him went still. The boy looked confused. What did he say? The rancher's hand tightened on the rifle. The sheriff continued. "She didn't just disappear. She was processed. Like the rest." The oldest girl stepped forward. "Don't listen to him." But the rancher didn't move. The sheriff added, "You want truth? Open the door." The rancher spoke slowly now. "If I open this door, one of us doesn't walk away." A faint pause. Then the sheriff answered honestly. "Yes." The children went silent. The rancher turned slightly toward them for the first time since the knock started. The boy whispered, "We're not going out there." The oldest girl added, "We fight from inside." The smallest girl held the silver button tighter. The rancher looked at them for a long moment. Then he made his decision. He stepped away from the door. Not toward it. Away from it. The sheriff outside didn't speak. Then, suddenly, a harder knock. No more patience. Open it now. The rancher raised the rifle slowly. The boy whispered, "What are you doing?" The rancher didn't answer. The sheriff spoke again, voice rising. "You can't protect them." The rancher finally replied, steady and cold. "I'm not protecting them." A pause. Then he added, "I'm choosing who comes through that door." Outside, something shifted. More than one person now. The sheriff wasn't alone. The rancher looked at the children one last time. "Stay behind me," he said. The oldest girl nodded. The boy swallowed hard. The smallest girl didn't move. The knock came again, louder this time. And the rancher reached for the latch. The rancher's hand stayed on the latch, but he didn't open the door yet. The knock came again, harder this time, like patience had finally run out. Outside, boots shifted in dirt, and the air itself felt crowded through the wood. The children stood behind him without moving, like even breathing might give them away. The oldest girl whispered, "Don't." The rancher didn't look back. "Stay quiet." The boy leaned closer to the wall. "How many are there?" The rancher answered without turning. "Enough to think they own this land." Another knock. Then a voice again, calm but no longer polite. "Open it, old man." The rancher finally pulled the door open. Cold air hit the room first. Then light from a lantern. Sheriff Danner stood at the center, coat clean, badge visible, like nothing had ever touched him. Two deputies stood slightly behind him, hands resting near their belts. The sheriff smiled faintly. "You made me wait." The rancher didn't move aside. "You came anyway." The sheriff nodded slowly. "I always do." His eyes shifted past the rancher, into the cabin. He saw the children immediately. "3," he said quietly. "Thought it might be more." The oldest girl stepped half forward, then stopped when the rancher raised a hand slightly behind him. The sheriff tilted his head. "You've been busy." The rancher replied, "You've been worse." A faint smile again from the sheriff. Still bitter. The boy whispered from inside, "Don't trust him." The sheriff's eyes flicked toward the voice. "I don't blame them for hiding behind you." The rancher said flatly, "Say what you came to say." The sheriff stepped one pace closer. "You took property." The rancher answered immediately. "They're not property." The sheriff didn't react. "Those papers are government records." The rancher let out a short breath. "They're receipts." That word changed the air. The deputies shifted slightly behind the sheriff. The sheriff's voice stayed calm. "You don't understand what you're holding." The rancher answered, "I understand enough to know you're nervous." The sheriff looked at him longer now. "Nervous is not a word you should use about me." The rancher didn't blink. "Then prove me wrong." A pause. The sheriff's smile faded a little. "Step aside." The rancher didn't move. The oldest girl spoke from behind him, louder than before. "We read everything." The sheriff's eyes moved to her. "Of course you did." The boy added, "You sold children." One deputy looked uncomfortable. The sheriff didn't. "You don't know what you're saying," the sheriff replied. The rancher stepped slightly to the side, just enough for the sheriff to see the table inside. The letters were still there. The sheriff's gaze dropped to them. For the first time, something in his face tightened. The rancher noticed. "You recognize them," the rancher said. The sheriff answered too quickly. "Old paperwork." The rancher shook his head. You don't flinch at old paper. Silence stretched. Then the sheriff spoke lower. You should have burned those. The rancher replied, I should have done a lot of things. The sheriff stepped closer again. Where did you get them? The rancher said, from a place you forgot to clean properly. That made the sheriff stop. The deputies exchanged a look. The oldest girl leaned forward slightly. We're not leaving with you. The sheriff didn't look at her. You already did leave. The rancher said, not anymore. The sheriff's voice hardened slightly. This isn't your fight. The rancher laughed once, short and empty. It became mine when my daughter stopped coming home. The sheriff's expression changed just slightly at that. A crack in the control. The boy noticed. You know her. The sheriff answered without looking at him. Everyone thinks they know things they don't. The rancher stepped forward half a step. Don't talk about her like that. The sheriff met his eyes again. You buried her wrong. The cabin went still. The oldest girl whispered, don't listen. The sheriff continued, quieter now. You buried an empty coffin and called it truth. The rancher's hand tightened near the rifle behind the doorframe. You don't get to say her name, he said. The sheriff tilted his head slightly. I already did. A long silence. Then the rancher asked, voice low. Why are you really here? The sheriff didn't answer immediately. Then he said, because you opened something that should have stayed buried. The rancher replied, you buried it wrong. The sheriff exhaled slowly. You think you're saving them? The rancher answered, I know I am. The sheriff finally looked past him again at the children. This ends one way or another, he said. The oldest girl stepped fully forward now. We already escaped you once. The sheriff's gaze sharpened. You didn't escape anything. The boy shouted, we did. One deputy shifted again, uneasy. The sheriff raised a hand slightly, stopping him from speaking. Then he said to the rancher, last warning. The rancher didn't answer. The sheriff's tone dropped. Hand over the papers. The rancher replied, no. The sheriff nodded once, almost disappointed. Then you chose this. The rancher said, no. You did. A beat. The sheriff looked at him for a long moment. Then quietly, almost like a confession he didn't mean to say out loud, he replied, you don't understand what's coming. The rancher answered, I understand enough. The sheriff stepped back slightly. Then live with it, he said. And for the first time, he turned away from the door without forcing it open. But he didn't leave. He just waited in the dark outside, and the lantern light didn't move with him. The rancher didn't wait for daylight. The moment the sheriff's voice faded into the dark, he made them move. The children followed without arguing this time, like something in the air had already decided for them. The letters were wrapped again, tighter than before, pressed against the oldest girl's chest as they crossed the yard. The boy kept looking back. He's still out there. I know, the rancher said. The smallest girl stayed close to his side, still holding the silver button like it was stitched into her palm. They moved fast through the tree line. The ground changed again, softer here, uneven, like it had been disturbed and never settled right. The rancher didn't speak much. He just led. The oldest girl finally broke the silence. Where are we going? Somewhere he won't think to look first, the rancher said. The boy asked, is there somewhere like that? The rancher didn't answer right away. Then, there used to be. They reached it near the edge of an old clearing. The well sat half collapsed, stone rim cracked, wood cover broken and hanging like it had given up years ago. Grass didn't grow near it. Even the wind seemed quieter around it. The boy stopped. That's it. The rancher nodded once. Don't come closer yet. The oldest girl stepped forward anyway. She said this place. The rancher looked at her sharply. Who said? The woman, she answered. Before she died. The rancher stared at the well longer now. What did she say exactly, he asked. The girl hesitated. Then, she said truth doesn't stay buried unless it's buried deep enough. The rancher crouched slowly beside the rim. That's not advice. That's fear. The boy whispered, so what is it? The rancher didn't answer. He reached down and grabbed a loose rope tied inside the well frame. It wasn't natural. It was placed. The smallest girl stepped closer without thinking. Is someone down there? No, the rancher said immediately. Not anymore. He pulled. The rope resisted at first, then gave with a slow dragging sound that made everyone freeze. Something heavy was tied to it. Wood scraped against stone from deep inside. The oldest girl's voice dropped. Don't pull it up. The rancher kept pulling. We didn't come this far to guess. The boy backed away. This feels wrong. The rancher didn't stop. Everything here is wrong. The rope finally came free enough to reveal a sealed wooden box tied at the end. Dark, water-stained, reinforced like it had been meant to stay hidden. The rancher set it on the ground carefully. No one spoke. Then the boy said, "Open it." The rancher didn't respond immediately. He just stared at it. The oldest girl stepped in. If it's another trap. It's not a trap, the rancher cut in. Then what is it? She asked. He looked at the well again. It's what she trusted would survive. He opened the box. Inside were more papers. Older than the letters. Faded ink, official seals, but also handwritten notes pinned between them. Names again. But these weren't just children. There were transfers. Properties. Payments. And one repeated signature line at the bottom of nearly every page. Sheriff Danner. The boy whispered, he did all of it. The rancher didn't answer. He kept turning pages. Then he stopped. His hand froze. The oldest girl leaned closer. What is it? He didn't speak for a moment. Then quietly, this isn't just about the orphan place. The boy frowned. Then what is it? The rancher looked up slowly. It's a network. The wind picked up slightly around the well, like the land itself didn't like hearing that out loud. The oldest girl asked, network of what? The rancher closed the file halfway. Control. The smallest girl stepped back again. Like owning people. The rancher nodded once. Exactly like that. The boy's voice cracked. So there are more places. Yes, the rancher said. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. The oldest girl finally asked, and your daughter? The rancher didn't look at her immediately. She saw this. The boy whispered, and she tried to stop it. The rancher nodded again, slower this time. And they stopped her. No one spoke after that. From somewhere far behind them, a sound echoed through the trees. Not hooves this time. Voices. Multiple. Moving closer. The boy panicked. He found us. The rancher stood instantly. No. He followed us. The oldest girl grabbed the box. We take this and go. The rancher shook his head. We don't run anymore. The smallest girl looked up at him. Then what do we do? He looked at all three of them for a long moment. Then he said it simply. We finish it. A branch snapped somewhere behind the trees. Closer now. The rancher lifted the rifle. The boy backed toward the well. We can't fight all of them. The rancher didn't move. We don't need all of them. Just enough to stop pretending this ends quietly. The oldest girl swallowed hard. Then this is it. The rancher nodded once. This is it. The voices grew louder now. No longer hidden. The smallest girl held the silver button tighter than ever. And as the first shadow moved between the trees, the rancher stepped forward between it and the children, standing exactly where the land had already decided the truth would finally stop hiding. The first shot didn't echo like a warning. It cracked through the trees like something breaking open. Dirt kicked up near the rancher's boot as he pulled the children down behind the low ridge near the well. "Down," he shouted. The boy hit the ground instantly. The oldest girl dragged the box with her, holding it tight to her chest. The smallest girl stayed pressed against the rancher's side, eyes wide but silent. Another shot followed. Closer. "They're not waiting," the rancher said. The boy whispered, "How many?" The rancher didn't look up. Too many to count fast. Movement in the trees. Shadows shifting between trunks. Not rushing yet. Surrounding. The oldest girl looked up. "We can't stay here." The rancher answered, "We're already staying too long." A voice called from the trees. "Drop it." Sheriff Danner again. "Calm. Controlled. Closer now."